The world is at crossroads as far as the safety and well-being of our ecosystem is concerned. With rampant urbanization, environmental degradation, and grave consequences of climate change, an overall path correction has become imperative to the existence of all living forms on Earth. Should we continue with the abuse of our precious natural resources? Should we use technology and innovation to conserve them? Can we reduce energy usage with a mindful approach or renewable sources? Dr. Prem Jain anticipated many such challenges we are facing today way back in the 70s. Over half a century of dedication and tireless efforts, he thought and spoke a language that was way ahead of its time. His passion and commitment to his Janmabhoomi and to his own mother ran equally deep.
From my earliest childhood, it's been ingrained with me that truth will always win, what we call Satyamev Jayate. She also gave us the love for all living creatures, trees and plants, the message of non-violence. And ever since my childhood, I've always respected that all life forms are equally important.
The last 10 years saw the culmination of his efforts by remarkably shaping the green movement in India, and his countless admirers began to refer to him as father of green buildings in India. The green revolution he started is the foundation of his legacy. In 2018, Prem Jain Memorial Trust was conceived to carry on his mission and founded upon his values, ideals and vision of a greener Bharat. Today, the Trust enjoys guidance of the best minds of the industry, champions of sustainability, corporate change makers and academicians. PJMT is set on its journey to create, establish and maintain sustainability directions through education, recognition and rewards that nurture future generations.
The best gift you can give to the person is educate him or her. Because then, wherever they are, they will be able to earn and flourish in life.
Each year begins with the Harit Prem Bharat Mahotsav, a week-long celebration of sustainability, and our annual flagship event, Prem Jain Memorial Address. The Trust organizes a spectrum of green initiatives which fill the week of January 26, Dr. Jain's birthday week. The Mahotsav is celebrated across the country with immense enthusiasm by Green Crusaders and our partner institutions through an array of sustainability-driven initiatives and activities. Having deep roots with Indian Green Building Council, the Trust has worked in tandem with IGBC and its chapters. PJMT takes great pride in partnering with esteemed partner societies, corporate leaders and premier universities across India, working closely with the common mission of creating a greener earth through the year. The Trust is a catalyst for sustainable research and development, sharing innovations and creating a global platform for exchange of thoughts and ideas to nurture future green ambassadors. PJMT has organized more than 300 green initiatives during Harit Prem Bharat Mahotsav in association with its esteemed partner societies, corporates and institutions across India, and arranged over 300 online sessions by distinguished speakers and industry change makers on sustainable built environment with participation of more than 5,000 students and working professionals. At this edition of Harit Prem Bharat Mahotsav, we invite you to join this green revolution, to build a brighter tomorrow and change the world we will leave behind for our children. If we can change the way we think about buildings, maybe what we build will change the world.
Thank you, Yatin. Namaskar to all of you. we couldn't have had a more appropriate film today, starting as it does, asking what we can do to reduce the abuse of natural resources. Good afternoon once again to all of you. I've invited some veterans like Niranjan Khatri, Vijay Raj, and some few others onto this panel for them to see if they can actively participate after we do two sessions, one from me of about 6 to 8 minutes now, and after that from Sreedhar of about 20 minutes. And then we invite questions, thoughts, insights, whatever that the faculty leaders here will provide, and students will. My special welcome to Dr. Ashish Kumar and to Dr. Tanmay. Thank you for being our host partners today for this session of the Distinguished Lecture Series. This, as you know, is I think the 30th lecture series or some such. We have been running it every month now for the last 2 years, plus 2.5 years now. And every time we have invited somebody who has done some very distinguished and very committed work in the interest of protecting and nurturing the future of India's natural resources. Let me start this way. This lecture, in a certain sense for me, is a departure from the many that we have had, which have focused on urban sustainability and green buildings, protection of lakes, and many such concerns. I have myself worked in this domain of urban sustainability, while people like Sreedhar have focused over the last 40 years now on what we can do to protect India's natural ecosystems. Now, the part that we do in urban sustainability is a mere fraction of the far larger and complex challenges and threats that our natural ecosystems face. In the next, say, 7-8 minutes, as I said, I'll set down some thoughts and questions too that'll help establish the context for what should be a very fascinating session with Sreedhar. I won't introduce him, barring saying that he and I know each other for as long, from about 1980-81, as thinking individuals. He offered me a window to this world of appalling destruction sometime in 1982-83 when he was in Development Alternatives, which was run by Ashok Khosla. I think that organization still continues to do some work. His profile will soon appear on the chat box. Yatin will enable that, and so I'm not going to say more about that. One of the great challenges for India in the years ahead of us, the next, say, 30, 40 years, is how to revive our degraded and damaged ecosystems. This task of ecological restoration has gained global attention, of course. Some of you even may know that this decade is supposed to be the UN decade on ecosystem restoration. Like this year's theme for the World Water Day was accelerating solutions or adoption of solutions for water management. Across India, a tidal wave of forces, and I'm not going to say much more on this, there are political sensitivities, of landscape abuse and of destruction that has been happening now in the last, say, 15, 20 years, but have been a continuum of what has happened historically from about 1860, when the British first began to threaten and maul ecosystems. How can we arrest these trends? How can we reverse them with governments, with corporates, and people, students, faculty, teachers? Education is a very, very critical sector for this, working together. Do we need more dire warnings of the COVID kind to wake up to this challenge? You will all recall how in Kanpur, the Ganga could be seen 6 feet down to the bottom, where it was clear after the first 4 or 5 days of the COVID halting of the country. Why did that happen? Because pollution stopped. This morning, I'm receiving a call from some community in Bangalore, which is saying that there is this tremendous amount of some industrial waste that is going into some lake, and they want to see what I can do to help them. Now, this is a problem across every city in the country. CSRs continue to look at narrow ends of how the company's own projects can gain from CSR payouts. There are not enough people who can drive solutions, even if there are funds that can support such activities. That's another challenge, therefore. Given our size and density of population, remember, we are 1.4 billion people. China is 1.4 billion people, but they have 2.5 times our landmass. Africa is 1.4 billion people. They have 10 times our landmass. They are 30 million square kilometers. China is 8.7 million square kilometers. India is 3.3 million square kilometers. So geologically, biologically, and culturally, despite our relative, shall we say, smallness compared to China and Africa, we are still a very large country. We are still one of the richest and most diverse nations in the world. Only 10 days ago, in another meeting of the World of Water Action Forum, where Sreedhar was presenting, I was reflecting on how India receives the highest quantum of rainfall thanks to the ceaseless monsoons. Students out here, many of you who are engineers, architects, management graduates, you must read a book called Chasing the Monsoon that was written, I think, in 1992 or 93 by a man called Alexander Frater, Frater. He wrote on this divine, magnificent spectacle of the monsoon that sweeps all of South Asia. And that helps us get as much water as we get. And yet, the country's systems, if you look at it another way, it has 4 of the world's 36 biodiversity hotspots. They contain about 8% of all recorded species, if you're talking of natural ecosystems. We have a magnificent array of ecosystems, even now, after all these years of depredation. Now, Sreedhar will talk about some of these, shall we say, uniqueness of ecosystems, from mangroves to conifer forests to, to cold deserts, to tropical grasslands or subtropical grasslands and so on. Each of these offer distinct natural communities and species. Industrialization, mining. He's sitting today in Chaibasa, and he's saying that he's got some meetings with the government and that the government is very proactive to seeing how they can work on, reducing this abuse of coal mining itself, of extraction of resources from the earth. So how do we stop this over-harvesting, shall we say? How do we transform many of our natural ecosystems that are now in these highly degraded states? Now, as I said, this need for ecological restoration is both selfish and conscientious. I use that word. I thought about it this afternoon before I started this meeting. The word conscientious is something that you need to look at and understand why we need to do it as students, as faculty, as corporate leaders, as working professionals, whatever we are. Ecological restoration, I'm again saying, needs careful planning and action. You have to pay heed to geology. He is a geologist first, Sreedhar, as training goes, to biology, to culture that form the layers of stories in each landscape, and accounting for, of course, the unique native biodiversity of India. Well, where, what, how are questions that are very, very difficult to answer in a complex system such as ours. What is the state of India's natural ecosystems is what we decided, Sreedhar and I, that he should sort of set his reflections down upon today. What can we do to protect these residual repositories of biodiversity that this great nation and land still continues to have? Sreedhar has worked on these, as I said, for 4 decades. He's a Roorkee alumnus of geology of the late 1970s. He worked with that legendary geologist teacher, V.K. Gaur. He worked briefly at the Atomic Energy Commission and then later at ONGC, both ecologically very hostile organizations. He quickly quit both those places and started work around 1981 or so on these aspects of mapping, mitigating, advocating, and alerting people and governments to the deadly outcomes that await India and her people if we continue our wanton ways of destroying what's left of our natural wealth. I'll stop here. It's like I said, I said I'll take about 7-8 minutes. It's now 19 to the clock. Sreedhar, thank you so much once again for being here with us today. I would like you to see how you want to take this from here. You have to unmute yourself. Payal Jain is also here. Hello, Payal. I know you're not in the country and you don't want to turn on your video and audio or whatever. Vijay Raj, thank you for being here. I'm sure you will all engage with Sreedhar after he presents. Sreedhar is first a friend. Sreedhar is also a doyen of the environment. Over to you, Sreedhar.
Thank you, Hari, and thanks to all of you, and especially Professor Tanmay and Ashish.
Namaskar, Sreedhar ji. Namaskar.
You have, yeah.
And what I would do is I will actually, put off my video because I'm in a place where the connectivity might be less. So generally you recognize my face, so I put off my video. And essentially what I thought today was I will kind of highlight in different ecosystems the kind of problems that or the issues that are there. And then, also what are the kind of few things that I see as, hope for the future. And then we can take the kind of discussions and other process that can follow up upon it. So since, this is co-hosted by, a university in Himachal Pradesh, I'll start with the Himalayan ecosystem. And as you know, like there's been the Himalayan range is called the third pole. The third pole is as much important as conserving the north and the south pole. And we are now realizing the pace at which the glaciers are retreating. Not only the glaciers are retreating, the kind of temperature rise in the Himalayas is giving rise to a need for shifting of agriculture, horticulture into higher and higher areas, which also brings about kind of intervention with high altitude areas, which can have implications downstream significantly. So one of the issues, if we see from just the viewpoint of what's happening in the Himalayas, and especially with lot of dam construction, our friends in the Himalayas will know the amount of construction that has happened just in the Kinnaur district of nearly 32 hydropower projects. How the entire ecosystem is changing, the kind of more occurrence of landslides, and also the kind of almost slow reduction in one of the unique species, the chilgoza, which is a pride of Himalayas, and it grows only in Afghanistan. These are the only two places where it grows. So we find that the Himalayan ecosystem is under severe threat, not only from the kind of larger climate change issue, but also from what's happening to the way we are looking at development. There is a huge pressure of mining, tourism, hydropower, and more recently defense infrastructure. And um, uh, many of you who are not very aware about what's happening in the Himalayas, just the Atal tunnel, which has been built recently, it saw more than 19,000 vehicles on a single day. And if you go to the other side into Lahore, there is a small village, Sisu village, and in the Sisu village, if 19,000 vehicles park, most often people who think enjoyment is having a couple of bottles of beer and throwing down the Chandrabhaga, you see the kind of destruction that a small village is going through. So the Himalayan ecosystem is uh, is uh, is facing something which is uh, you know not recognized by large number of people as one of the sources for the largest population to sustain in the next ecosystem, that is the Indo-Gangetic Plains. The Indo-Gangetic Plains thrive or just sustain themselves just on the river systems from the Himalayas. The more we kind of disturb the Himalayan ecosystem, we are going to have a larger problem across. And in the Indo-Gangetic Plains, what we are seeing is the kind of air and water pollution. Uh, Hari, Dr. Hariharan just mentioned about Kanpur, but if you see what is happening to Yamuna in Delhi, to the river systems, across the plains of plains in the Indo-Gangetic region, there is significant air and water pollution. And also, even though we have groundwater available, all these river systems are there, we find persistent poverty in the Indo-Gangetic plain. And this persistent poverty has not been no mechanism over the last 70, 75 years of independence has been able to address the kind of poverty in this, like if you look at the central districts of Uttar Pradesh, or as we go down into Bundelkhand also, and in the eastern UP, Bihar, this belt. So what is it that is stopping an area where the soils are good, the water is available, yet we are not able to enable people to get out of poverty. Then if we go a little east into the northeast, as I said about Himachal Pradesh, just in Arunachal Pradesh itself, there are more than 118 dams and water related projects that have been planned. Some are being executed, and some of these are being executed on a logic that if we build them, then we'll have have the prior right, and would ensure that China is not building dams on the other side. Even though we know that these kind of obligations may not actually be sustained. Similarly, another big project in Northeast, the Dibang Hydro project, is going to submerge at least 26,000 hectares of forests. Not only that, the Northeast has had consistent problems with oil and gas. Many of you would have heard about the Baghjan explosion, where we had fire flaring for almost 6 months. And since it was outsourced to a company which did not have the capacity to deal with it, we ended up having to destroy a huge, the Dibru Saikwa National Park, which impacted the wildlife in that area, the people around in that living in that area. So this was a very, very significant impact. Similarly, a lot of illegal coal mining in the border between Assam and Arunachal Pradesh. Also, we are having a new program that government is planning to like kind of have 5 lakh hectares of palm oil plantation in the Northeast as a development program. And we know how such kind of activities can impact the biodiversity. Similarly, in the name of biorefinery, we have now licensed out to companies to take away natural bamboo in the Northeast to use for the biorefinery in the Northeast. So so Northeast is also under severe environmental pressure. Then as we come down into central India, there is a severe distress among the tribal communities. In fact, of late, many tribal leaders are saying that, does this country think of tribals as even human beings when we talk about human rights? There is extensive mining and industrialization. And as I was telling just before this meeting, this workshop with Dr. Hariharan, the whole idea of rationalization of using of our resources. Say, for instance, we have licensed more than 400 coal mines, whereas the top 50 to 60 coal mines can produce as much as we need. Similarly, if we look at bauxite, the one property on which the National Aluminium Company, NALCO, is sitting on might actually be useful to provide the aluminum ore, the bauxite ore, for most of our aluminum industry for the next 20, 25 years. but we are pockmarking different jungle areas, small, kind of mines that are being opened. And once you open up a dense forest area, the amount of biodiversity loss is very significant. And there is no thinking about it. And even now, recently, the government is trying to auction out another 140 coal blocks, even though the licensed capacity is almost twice or more than twice the actual need that we have. And one of the things in central India is some of the places are, what I feel are entering into a stage of chronic poverty. That whether it is the KBK districts that are called the Kalahandi, Bolangir area, or some of the areas in Angul, where a lot of coal mining happens, but you find pockets where people are historically poor, and now they have been so deprived of their natural resources that they're ending up in a cycle of poverty which they cannot get out of. Moving a little west into the desert ecosystem, it would be surprising for you to find that a place like Bikaner had flooding. So there is a huge change in the weather conditions there. There are flash rainfalls, and there is flooding in areas, partly also due to how we design our urban systems, and extensive sandstone and other mines which are causing a huge load of a disease called silicosis, which has affected more than 80,000 people who have been compensated, but a large more that are uh, are not even diagnosed. Similarly, what we find in the desert ecosystem is, though there is a water crisis and a water crisis last time also when we discussed, the people living in the desert ecosystem had some of the best water management systems. But today you find that dyeing industry, which uses up so much of water, several other water intensive industries have been brought into those regions. So we have a kind of concern there as to how we are dealing with some of these ecosystems. Then when we look at the coastal ecosystems, you find increased cyclones. The west coast has also become very vulnerable to periodic storms and cyclones. The huge infrastructural investment is altering the entire beach ecosystem. We were recently analyzing with communities in the coastal area, all from Gujarat onwards up to Trivandrum, almost every 30 kilometer of the beach is being uh, uh, you know developed as some particular infrastructure activity. There is a jetty, there is a coal import site or a refinery site where people are protesting, but yet we are going ahead with this. So this in general, as a overview, I wanted to suggest that we have in different ecosystems of our country, we have different kinds of problems. And as we come south, you know how the Western Ghats is being ravaged by various kinds of projects. How once again we are encroaching upon some of the eco-sensitive areas with some of our projects. In the name of development, what we are doing seems to be, to create infrastructure and create things which actually do not relate to what people need. So if we are not looking at a spatial planning and looking at what people need in each of the areas and how we could go about it, this kind of large infrastructure and a mad rush to reach a $5 trillion economy will significantly hurt. And also, as many of you know, today, we are facing this twin crisis of global climate change and also globalization. Therefore, the investor who wants to invest calls the shots, whether it is the right ecosystem to build that kind of a activity or not. is not under consideration. So every state government, if you see, is promoting global investors meeting and is constantly looking for investments, but is not analyzing what are the kind of issues that people are having and what are the kind of systems that are uh, you know uh, which are appropriate to our kind of country, our kind of societies. One of the last point that I want to make in this initial uh, this thing is on the kind of our use of groundwater. Dr. Hariharan also mentioned about water in the country, but many of you may be knowing that India is the largest user of groundwater in the world. Almost 230 cubic kilometers of water we use, and more than 60% in irrigated agriculture, and is dependent on groundwater, and 85% of our drinking water is now dependent on groundwater. And we have areas where we have geogenic problems like fluoride, arsenic, nitrates. Then we have the other kind of sewage and other industrial effluents which are hurting our not only river systems but also even groundwater. So one of my biggest worries is the kind of exploitation of groundwater. Will it lead to certain parts of India which would be in chronic drought, and even long range like water transport systems may not work for them? So we have a situation in the country where we are suffering, as now across the world, a lot of people have been understanding that we are in a period where there is a poly crisis. It's not a, as I said, not the twin crisis of just of globalization and global climate change, but also we have a crisis where the health systems across the world is in shambles after the pandemic, and every new such kind of a virus could we now are realizing could impact a large cross section of the people across the world. And also we are finding that despite the United Nations, despite several peace efforts across the country, wars continue. So climate change, pandemics, and also these periods we are seeing large earthquakes, and we also see that as we keep saying uh, the uh, the Indian Himalayas is in a seismic quiet, and the next likely earthquake is in this belt. So we need to be concerned about several things, and uh, these are kind of problems that are uh, not solvable by one set of individuals or one institutional structure. We need the entire society to wake up to it and address in multiple ways. But there are also right things that are happening. There is a growing awareness and urge among people in general public, as I see across even in rural areas, that we need to reverse this. And how to reverse this? There are lots of people going back to organic farming, lot of people, lots of groups in India which are very less known, who are working at local levels, who are kind of working on ecosystem restoration, managing watersheds. For the first time, there is pressure coming on the investors and even the banks as to what they are lending for, what they are investing on. And also, as a part of the international, climate change initiative, the NDCs in each of the countries, we have been also talking about locally determined, kind of changes through the NDCs. So there are and as I said, there is a beginning of thinking as to how do we rationalize our use of natural resources. These are some kind of directions which probably we need to push further in future. And also, how to get rid of inefficiencies. For instance, limestone mining and cement industry is a major problem in parts of Himachal Pradesh. If you look at it today, and some of you who are also part of the building industry, we have 558 million tons capacity of cement production, but we are using still about 300 million tons. So what is the great rationale in increasing more limestone mining and creating and at the end of the day we find cartelization among the cement industry, and the competition commission is saying is fining them, or these kind of cases drag on. So while there are some strands of where future is headed, but the crisis looms very large on the Indian environment and ecosystem. And I think collectively, many of us can do certain things that will halt this kind of rapid decline, which is becoming a race to the bottom. And how we stem this is going to be a collective effort. Thank you. I'll stop here.
Nice, Sreedhar. And well, you're a dream speaker. You took what, 16 minutes on this first round, as you said. If I go back to some conversations you and I have had in 89, 90, 91, I remember your first sensitizing me to the fact that the sub-Himalayas is just a baby at 20 million years. The Aravallis is 700 million years. You talked about the Western Ghats, which is about 450 million years old. And you have the Eastern Ghats, which is even older than the Western Ghats, right? Now, and then, of course, if you looked at the Vindhyas and the Satpuras and so on, you are now sitting in the Vindhyan range if you are sitting in Chaibasa. So when you talk of these mountain ecosystems and vulnerabilities, suddenly I think of someone like, say, Sandeep Talalika, who is here, and I can ask him I'll give him also audio rights if he wants to speak. We suddenly begin to see that what Sreedhar mentioned about the building sector pales into insignificance when you posit it in the face of these far larger questions, which are so important. When it comes to this distinction today, please remember, he is talking about the state of natural ecosystems in India, but he is actually talking of the need to distinguish between ecological restoration and all the other eco-conscious activities that we all partake in. Talk about sustainable buildings, tree plantation, organic farming, or permaculture, and every such thing. These are parts of eco-conscious activities that we do, but this does not account for strictly ecological restoration. I want you to remember this while I now invite first Professor Ashish and then Dr. Tanmay to see what they want to say in the context of their being responsible shapers of young minds, young Indian minds. And then we will see if we can invite other people here. There are very many distinguished people here. I must acknowledge the presence of, like I said, Sandeep Talalika is one of those senior wonderful members. He runs a hotel in Maharashtra, very, very deep green hotel. And he does lots of activities at his own village level. There is Professor Sri Lakshmi formerly of the SS University in Cuttack. We also have Dr. Geeta Vaidyanathan here. We have Vijay Kanda, who is a water professional of 35 years of work from Hyderabad. We have Rajneesh Joshi, who is a governing council member also of the Prem Jain Memorial Trust. We have Karpagam, a young lady who is now doing a research thesis on effluent water. I said, why are you working on the effluent water? You should be working on things that can have far larger application across the country. And she's trying to see how she can reconstruct her doctoral thesis. Then there is Dr. Gayatri from the NITE group of institutions. We have Ashwin Parthasarathy. I mean, we have lots of other people here who are not just participants, they are themselves leaders. Over to you, Professor Dr. Ashish Kumar.
Thanks, sir. Thanks, Dr. Hariharan, giving me this platform and to discuss with the sustainable development and the natural ecosystem. So as a civil engineer, if we talk that all we know that we are all As a construction engineer, we are just destroying the natural ecosystem. We are exploiting the natural resources in the name of the development. And that all is going on all the world right now. And we are not thinking about the future generation, then what we will get after this. So what I think that as a civil engineer, what we can do and what we can provide to our students, so that in future, if they go for the construction work, so what we can improvement we make in our construction designs. So that is the main basically issue, we can say that. So as a design consultant, as a design engineer, what we can do, we can design our projects in such a way that we can reduce the material, we can reduce the energy use, and at the same time we should focus on the renewable energy resources.
That's right, Ashish. But I'll ask you like this: you heard that very significant question from Sreedhar Ramamurthi. Sreedhar Saab is saying, are we doing, as development, are we doing what people need in territorial segments? See, there is so much diversity of geology, of culture, of ecology. What does he say? He's saying in each of these areas, how do we impute projects and development of what projects is a bad word, but whatever that is, that people need in that area while we protect the integrity of such cultures? How would you respond to him on that?
So basically, if you talk about the construction which is going on currently, what we need a basically proper planning. At present, if we see, as we are residing in the Himachal Pradesh, and I am in Himachal Pradesh for last 17 years. So I have seen a tremendous development. We say it's a development, and what we can see that we are just growing the buildings, and as we grow as we have sometimes grown the trees, but this time we are not taking into this aspect. What we can do that without disturbing the whole ecology, complete system. What we can do, we can plan a satellite city. We can plan a satellite city that in a proper way, in spite of mushrooming the trees and mushrooming the buildings in different places. So basically, what is happening? We are disturbing the landscaping also. So that is the better way. In my opinion, that is a better way. We properly plan a satellite city in a remote place where we can develop in a systematic manner without disturbing the disturbing the ecology of the system. So that is the main idea. What we can do here.
Got that? Okay, Tanmay, your.
Thank you so much, sir. And first of all, let me express my gratitude to IGBC and all of the members in PJMT Trust.
Yes.
Yeah, and PJMT Trust, correct. So to have such a knowledgeable conversation with such a distinguished panelist, and especially Mr. Sreedhar, who has such a wide experience, and from Himalayan ranges to southern India, he has given a brief in his first 15 minutes of discussions. So I like to put a pertinent question which we are facing in the Himalayan regions, as sir has indicated regarding Kinnor, that how many dams are being constructed and how much power we are generating, but at what cost. Similarly, what is happening is with this 4-laning of the highways that is being constructed. I'm here from, say, last 4 years. Previously, I was in Rajasthan, different part of India. So now what I'm experiencing this 4 to 5 years, how much climate has already changed in just within this brief span which I have been in Himalayas. And due to these power projects which are coming, and they are putting such question marks on where do we put a fine line between how much do we construct versus how much do we deforest. And it's the same question which sir has put regarding glaciers. I was attending one of the governing meetings with the Himalayan state body. They were very much worried And regarding the melting of glaciers, it is predicted with IJMT that in next 90 to 100 years, all the Himalayas will be underwater. The glaciers are melting at such a rapid speed. The mountaineers who are going at Himalaya, they are experiencing such high heat waves and heat strokes with that snow-covered land. So that's such a big question mark which raises, and this today's session is just building towards that. That I'm more talking about in context of Himalayas.
Absolutely.
So with the solutions we are trying to come as the meeting is getting progress, one of the things as sir was suggesting regarding a satellite city, one of the other things is, as we are promoting this with our students, we want them to get educated. At least they get aware to these issues, how they are contributing to this overall global warming, and what they can do at their particular level, so they do not indulge in such practices which overall increases the greenhouse gases consumptions and uh, other biodiversity. They are not able to protect it. So in my opening remarks, I just wanted to again thank the panelists and for this nice discussion which was
Thank you, Tanmay. Let's invite a few more people. Sandeep Palolikar, you are doing some very inspiring work at an extremely local level. And you're one of those very humble people who say, well, I don't know much about the environment, but I'll do what others bid or suggest to me. Sandeep, do you want to respond to what Sreedhar has outlined as this very grave concern before India, which has been there for the last 100 years, particularly the last, say, 30, 40 years, and definitely into the next 50 years? Sandeep.
Doctor, thank you so much for inviting me. And believe me, I really am today a learner, because Dr. Sreedhar has been talking such great ideas and such great thoughts. Yes, I decided long time ago that I cannot, first of all, we say human beings are the most intelligent species. I completely disagree. I think we are the most stupid species on earth. And, looking at our karmic, what is it? Our karmic path, the way we're leading it, our collective karma is going to come and bite us, and God bless us all. But I truly believe that what I can do for what is within my sphere of influence, I will continue doing. So I have invested my time in making a hotel in this taluka, which is 138 villages, into India's first platinum rated hotel. And now it's going to become India's first net zero hotel.
Which is about 100 kilometers to the east of Satara.
Yes.
Right.
And number two, this is within my sphere of influence. I'm influencing, as you know, doctor, and thanks to your support, 138 sarpanches to go and look at water, as a resource, look at electricity as a resource, waste. And we are doing a good job in that, I think, because it's a very slow process trying to overcome political, the entire landscape here. So anyway, so I think whatever I'm doing from my sphere of influence is actually going to reap fruits.
Yeah. Any significant thought from what Sreedhar shared that strikes you in a way that you can share that with all these young Indians who are with us today?
Yes, actually, let me take you a little bit abroad. On my last trip to Switzerland, for a funeral of a friend, I went to the Alps, and guess what? Anything below 10,000 feet did not have snow. Every single hotel, every single ski resort in the Alps below 10,000 feet had no business. Actually, you could walk around instead of ski. So you can imagine what's going to happen to the Himalayas, in the next, as a lot of stalwarts will talk about, in just another 10 years. Because how many heat waves can a mountain range take,
Right.
How much heat are we going to put into this atmosphere?
Sure. We are not just a stupid species. We are the most threatening of species, not just for the planet, for this planet, but for the universe itself, in the ways that we are upsetting many of those fragile, delicate balances. And to
Absolutely.
all of you young Indians here, I will urge you, strongly recommend you to read a book by a man called Bill Bryson, B-R-Y-S-O-N,
Yes, yes.
a book called A Short History of Nearly Everything. Please pick that up. It costs you very little on Kindle, maybe 180 or 200 rupees, but it gives you, an understanding of how immensely fragile we are.
Yes.
Niranjan, you have been a friend of Sreedhar's. You are one of those extremely, not ambitious, but audacious people when it comes to urging, recommending, targeting things that need to be done by all of us as humans. What is your take to what?
Thank you, Hari. I have two suggestions for Professor Ashish Kumar. Since you are sitting in a very beautiful campus, one of the inputs that you should give to the civil engineers is that whenever they are designing any project, along with whatever they do with regards to cement, steel, etc., please set up a sapling bank. Because if you have a sapling bank, you have trees which are about 6-7 feet in height, which can be retransplanted in that area. The idea is very simple, but it's very, very powerful if you want to address the heat island effect of buildings. I won't go into details of that. You infer what I'm trying to say. Number two, I would like all the future civil engineers not to be just civil engineers, but bio-civil engineers. So instead of just sitting in the class and measuring from left to right and horizontally, vertically, etc., they must be taken by people who understand nature and the forest and understand the nuances of the forest and see how to bring that subject in their building process in the form of biomimicry. I think biomimicry has a very big role to play in regenerative economy. And if we do this, hopefully there is hope. Thank you.
Thank you, Niranjan. Vijayaraj, you want to add anything? You have also heard Sreedhar before.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. We have been seeing the problems are, we are going towards the extinct of everything very fast. But the only thing is, the problem is fast approaching, but the solutions are not, available. So I urge all the youngsters who are listening to us, we should think about the research, because if water is my domain, so I'm talking in terms of water. The water is the least research subject, if you take in the world. So I suggest the children's, the young budding engineers to take up this as challenging task, because problem is everywhere. We know that we are heading towards what is the solution? How do we address it? That is what required today. Sure. Because we know the problem, but the solution should be research. A lot of research should be an importance in India or elsewhere in the world. That is what my takes.
Lovely. Professor Sreelakshmi, you're there. Namaskar. Very nice to see you here. Would you want to say hello to the rest of us? She is not unmuted herself. We have both Gayatri, Dr. Gayatri Aditya and Dr. Geeta Vaidyanathan. Geeta, would you want to say yes to us? Hello to us and speak? Both Professor Sreelakshmi and Dr. Geeta Vaidyanathan are from the SS University in Cuttack. But Geeta has been doing some truly inspiring work from other parts of Odisha. Geeta, do you want to say hello? I'm all right if you want to decline.
Hello. I'm speaking from my mobile because there's been a thunderstorm here. So
okay. Right.
It was very interesting just listening to all of them, and I think what Sreedhar said about the poly aspect of the entire problem, I think that's so critical. So it's very interesting, and it'll be interesting to see how the colleges they're planning to do things. So it'll be interesting to see how they take it forward, because I think everything is in the hand of our youth.
Having been a passionate teacher yourself, apart from a practitioner of many things at the hard levels of demonstration of environmental or ecological sustainability, what do you think, faculty, teachers like Dr. Tanmay, Professor Ashish, many others like the thousands of them across the country for engineering and architecture and design, and of course, programs in business and management and all that. What should they be doing to sensitize their graduates? Geeta?
Yes, yes. I think there's a lot of opportunity if we can reconfigure courses because of the NEP. And so if there could be these, truly immersion classes, I think we need immersive experiences. And though we say that we want to do these linkages with institute, industry, and on the ground activities, the curriculum is so loaded that I don't think the students have time to do much actually beyond their curriculum. So if this could be included as a part of the curriculum, and you could have some very interesting immersive experiences where people could go, like what Sreedhar was mentioning. There's so many people doing work on watershed, the Johats, the traditional water harvesting practices, and all these have some engineering aspects too, the traditional aspects. So if they could link somehow their current curriculum with some immersive experience and then bring it back to the curriculum, then it'll be a neat closing of the loop, I think. Otherwise, we'll just be paying lip service. That's all I need to say. Thank you.
Sure. I see what you're saying. Sandeep Naran, you work with many colleges. You are a representative on the AICTE. You've also been working on some demonstrable projects in Surat. Namaskar to you. How are you?
Fine, sir.
You are working on construction water, on air management in construction and projects, while you bring a larger overarching sense of extreme sensitivity to these needs of ecology. You heard Sreedhar today. You heard him saying that we need to not look at development of the kind that we have got. We need to completely redefine, rewrite the way we are shaping destiny of this country's economic development. What would you say, Sandeep?
Sir, I wish we could somehow inculcate respect for water in 141.4 billion citizens of India. Somehow we have lost that. That's my personal feeling. I do projects, lots of projects, except for the discussion about respecting water or conservation of waters. Many a times it's just a conference discussion happening.
In air-conditioned rooms, if you please.
Yeah, we as Honorable Prime Minister has said that we need to take the discussion from boardrooms to dining rooms. So that will be the first step, and working in the field with the students, and we have been doing lots of good work with the students. I wish we can take this message right from where it should start, from the schools, from the students, to know how to respect water. That's my 2 cents on the discussion.
True. Thank you. But thank you for being here, because I know you have been inspiring many hundreds of students, and your work at the Prem Jain Memorial Trust is also very valued. Nikki Nirvikalpa, you're a young man here among the lot. You must be the youngest. And I know you have worked with Sreedhar on a few things. You're working today on fecal management and urban challenges of managing sludge, human sludge. What is your take on what Sreedhar has said, and what you have felt over the last, say, 20 years of your dedicated work? Nikki Nirvikalpa. Are you there? Should I have asked you to first say hello? Okay. Kusma Devi has got something to say. I've added her up here. Neil Matthews will be next. Kusma Devi, will you want to speak up, please? Yes. Wonderful. Please speak. Please speak, Kusma. You can unmute and speak. You have to unmute, please. Kusuma Devika. Well, Neil, will you unmute and speak, please? I don't.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hi.
Yes.
Thanks, Hari.
Thank you.
Am I audible?
Yes, please. Loud and clear.
Okay. So for the poly problem, only one solution is there. That is a uni solution. That is me. I have to change, and I have to be a role model for everybody else I am interacting. And that is the starting point. That only can make any change. Because earlier somebody told it will become just a verbal exercise. To get out of that, the first thing is all who are participating in such things, in thinking process itself has to practice. Wherever we are, in any country, we have to practice. If we are telling people to go to 100 liter per day water, that has to be applied across the globe, wherever they are talking, advising from. That is one thing. Then about the water, I think 2-3 areas need immediate attention. One is the farming. What we are practicing is very, very like water unfriendly. Many places I heard it's up to 80%, but today I heard it is 60%. If it is 60%, very good. But there are a lot of models like Israel and all following by reusing the grey water kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay. So that we should really quickly explore and use our intelligence and research capabilities in reducing the water used for farming. Second thing is how to reuse the water, grey water, black water, into construction as well as for farming. And third thing is serious look is required in using wherever we are using fresh water, basically construction industry. How can we reduce that water consumption? And actually, many things may not be going even measured. If we go to a brick manufacturing place, cement brick, we will see that lakhs of water flowing out of control, just to water the bricks while drying.
I got that.
So that's all. Sorry, if I took more time.
Not at all. Thank you for speaking up, Neil Matthews. But let me tell you, again, I'll remind all of us here that this emphasis on ecological restoration that Sreedhar is talking about, and the listing of eco-conscious activities that you just now did are very different. That is, these eco-conscious activities are, to me, what do you call them? They are a fig leaf of an apology, because you and I, you started by saying, you know, change should start with us as individuals. But then you can do all that you do, and then you can have the government in one fell swoop measure decide that in the Andamans, 650 square kilometers of forest will be decimated in the name of development. We are just now doing that. You all know that. Now, that which is once one Bangalore city. Bangalore city is today 700 square kilometers. Only 2 months ago, we are hearing that there are some 2 or 3 large projects in the Western Ghats, which will mean that about 6,000 square kilometers, that 600,000 hectares of land is going to be taken away. Now, you and I can struggle, Neil Matthews, but at the end of it, if one such measure takes away chunks of such biodiversity, what are we to do? I'm not expecting an answer. We all don't have answers. I'm only saying that we must collectively think about it. And I do not believe that it lies in the hands of the individual today. I think that's what Sreedhar is also saying. He's been struggling, wrestling in very many districts of India, in, of course, central India, then in Jammu and Kashmir and many other parts. He's been working, not just visiting, working in over 100 districts in the country. Kusuma, you wanted to speak, after which we shall hand the mic over to Sreedhar to see what he wants to offer as further reflections for the next 10 minutes or so, and then we can see what we do to wrap up. Kusuma, you want to speak? No. Nikki, you want to speak? No. Okay, Sreedhar, it's back to you. Thank you for first, laying whatever you did. Now, you have heard all of this. Sreedhar, you have heard all of the rest of them. Do you see what you want to leave as a single message for teachers who are shapers of destinies of our young Indians? And then, of course, for the students themselves who are here. Sreedhar. Sreedhar?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I might be a little noisy, in the background.
I heard that. Yeah.
I'm in fact traveling into another village where the asbestos mines has ravaged the village. I heard many of them, and I feel that everyone has a concern about water, right? Which is one of the, as everyone, believes that water will be the cause for the wars. But what I am trying to, foresee is a larger society which is able to impress upon our decision makers, right? At the individual level, whatever we do, we need to do. Nobody is denying that, right? And it is important. But as the examples that you pointed out, unless there is a pressure from the society on the decision makers, that these are things that are required for development of our communities. Like for instance, if you take a case of Sagarmala, you are building ports, then parallelly you are building highways across all the coastal line area, right? Now this has no utility either to the fisher folk or to anybody else, right? It only allows us to make use of more steel and cement perhaps, right? So how do we collectively bring this pressure? Secondly, the kind of dilution that is taking place in our environmental norms, right? It has become all just merely paperwork. For instance, the example that you quoted of the Nicobar Islands, right? Now, you are doing compensatory afforestation for it in Haryana, right? And you say that, because there is a rule of compensatory afforestation, I'll do it there, right? Why doesn't it anger a general, like Niranjan Khatri Sahab, like how long that he will say, take the burden on himself, but not say that, no, it is wrong. These decisions are not to be taken in the interest of the public in the country, right? So what we are finding is, like, we assume that whatever the state does is good or, is development, and are not willing to question the fundamental, aspects of those. And then once there is a crisis, we push the burden onto ourselves or to local communities, right? Like for instance, now, like on irrigation, if you take, at one end, in the name of climate, we are putting up solar pumps, and the solar pumps are exhausting more water because you just leave the pump to, solar pump on, right? So it is even worse than the flood irrigation from canals. At the other end, what you are doing, like the Kundalia project in Madhya Pradesh, you are giving away the right to irrigate to a corporate, saying that he will ensure more crop per drop, and disempowering the farmer of the right even to have a pond and grow his own crop. So unless some of these things, for instance, the Niti Aayog comes up with a report saying that there has been economic losses because of some of the Green Tribunal judgments, just as it happened with Sterlite or it happened with the Mopa airport, right? It says that, we have had economic losses. What is happening is the economic benefits are being harvested by a small number of people, and the costs, actual financial costs, are in retail paid by the people. The people in Tuticorin are paying for their health, which is not accounted. So that is when sometimes I think we are headed for, as Nomi Klein talks about, disaster capitalism, and know that every accident in the US increases the GDP by more than at least $4,000. Are we looking at systems like that, where we think that anything economic is more important than what is environmental and what is required in the long run? And I think that is where, apart from doing what we are doing at our own levels, like for instance in Goa, now they are planning to revive iron ore mining, right? This was a period when the Goa government and the Goanese people could have thought of alternative of development, when for at least few years there was a respite from mining. Now they have concocted laws to allow mining once again. And I am getting requests from Power Limb to other places where There is no require. We are like a uneducated, illiterate country. We are mining a good quality iron ore and exporting it out and saying that we are doing economic development. So these are some of the things that I think the participants also need to think about, and also some of the students who need to think on long term. What kind of issues are there. Have you ever thought of taking a village and saying, what is the demography of this village? What do the kids who are now infants, or who are just in the elementary school, what will they do after 20 years? What are the programs that are there? But we are politicking on what kind of curriculum has to be there, right? So unless we are going down to those kind of levels of depths of issues, and also willing to question what is happening in the large scale, I think the sum of all the people doing together will not be equivalent to the destruction that is caused by the larger thing. And as people who are involved in building industry, we all know how sand mining is destroying rivers, right? Can we even legislate saying that no interior walls will be built of cement, concrete, because we don't need security within our house? We can find alternate materials which can dramatically reduce the need for river sand. So many of these things have to be thought through. And I think, the dialogues you have initiated and Prem Jain ji would be very happy if, some of these are, seriously thought about, and, and these questions are raised at appropriate forums.
Sreedhar, I'm very glad that you brought up Dr. Jain. You had a meeting with him. He came to your office out of his deep sense of humility and his need, as I always felt with him, his need for learning. How did that exchange go about? Do you have any memories of that meeting?
Yeah, it was, we were so thrilled to have him in our office, because we are a very small institution, and to have, a person like him coming to visit us, it was a real privilege and a proud moment for us. First thing is, he said, why don't we meet each other earlier in life, right? And the kind of things that we were doing, he was very appreciative of it. And he said, these are cutting edge, and you will face challenges. You will face challenges, and today we know what kind of challenges we are facing, right? Because some of the things that we are saying are not easily palatable. That was the word he said, not easily palatable by large number of people. So I very fondly have fond memories of that long session we had when he came to our office. And unfortunately, we don't have him amongst us.
Even Payal is not here. Should have loved to hear this. Yatin, you must share this recording with Payal and ask her to listen to this bit of what he, fondly recalled out of a sense of deep admiration. You can see that, Yatin, of Sreedhar. Anyone who wants to add anything, or Sreedhar, do you want to add anything more? It's 4:13 now. We can end in the next, say, 4 or 5 minutes. Of course, I would request.
I thought, I was getting too provocative, so I will stop.
Yeah, well, you were, on that delicate area, treading very thin ice when it comes to what is ecological and what is political. But that's fine. Tanmay, Dr. Tanmay, do you want to? I mean, to this last 8-9 minutes of a very profound set of thoughts that Sreedhar presented, which hit at the very basics, the very fundamentals of what India needs to be looking at. And all of us are responsible as the older generation for these youngsters who are today 18, 19, 20. We don't want them to get to 2060, look back and say, what did those people, my parents and my teachers and all these people do to leave such a disastrous legacy for me? We don't want them to say that. We want to see if we can do things which can bring the change in our generation Well, it can't be mine, but it can be yours, Tanmay.
Yeah, even I am getting older. So my hairs are not looking black, but they are white in colors. But from this part aside, a very profound point has been raised by Dr. Sreedhar and yourself as moderating this whole conversation. For our younger generation, we always think that what legacy we are leaving behind and what solutions we are giving, rather just repeating the question again and again. So, as Sir has said, we need to work on the grassroots, and as a community, we need to come up to the legislations which are going up. And as you are saying, that thin line between ecological movement versus political will, that has to come up and form into a certain kind of revolution, as this series is doing amongst the youth. They should get this to the core of them, that as a certain solution was given, as I'm by profession civil engineer, so we should be the graduate should be bio-civil engineers. I like that idea very much. And these kind of things, when they are inculcated in our Indian regulation codes also, which we can work upon as we are growing in our terms, that I'm seeing in places like Delhi, they have very serious norms for going above water pollution, air pollution. But when you come to states like Himachal or Rajasthan or states which I am working with, these kinds of regulations are not being enforced with. So to amass at least the education institutes with the current norms and putting them in the codal guidelines, that is one big thing which we can, at my level, I can contribute to seeing today's, that's the impact of today's session to me, if I'm summarizing.
Wonderful, wonderful. That itself is rewarding, Tanmay, because if one person changes, if you change that in your school, in college, then I know that some other teacher will say, hey, if Dr. Tanmay can do this, I can do this. Mrs. Renu Jain, are you there? Would you want to say hello to us? I never request you to speak, but today is a very, very different kind of a session. Mrs. Jain, do you want to speak? Do you want to say hello to us? You have to unmute. No. Okay. Kusma Devika, do you want me to again invite you to speak? You had raised your hand earlier. No. I don't know how that happened. Okay. Well, I think, it's 4:16, 4:17. We have had a lovely session today, Sreedhar. I must say that to you. Really, not often do we find someone who has the extensive travel experience. Travel has been the best teacher for you more than anything else. And of course, you connect and interact with many thousands of people that you have met over these 3-4 decades. Sandeeps, both Sandeeps, Sandeep Narang and Sandeep Telalukar. Any last words that you want to say on behalf of the Prem Jain Trust, on behalf of IGBC, whatever? Both of you, please, anyone. Sandeep and Sandeep Telalukar.
Doc, I say today I was a learner, and I'm really, really appreciating this series more and more. And I hope you bring many stalwarts into our lives who can truly teach us so many things. The country needs you. The world definitely needs you.
You know, Sandeep, you come from a very distinguished family. Your father was a Tata man for very, very many long years. You come from Goa, and Sreedhar was talking about how this absurdity of having to revive the iron ore policy and find ways of mining more. What is your take on the hurt that Goa is facing as part of the Western Ghats and as part of a very extremely sensitive pocket of biodiversity?
Doc, one of my spiritual gurus told me the day humanity started digging more than 6 feet into the ground to achieve their needs, that's the day we start destroying ourselves. 6 foot. Below that, we should never touch it. Think about it. Just think about it.
All of you think about that. Anything that is below 6 to 10 feet, so 3 meters, let's say, does not belong to us. Says.
And if you just fly over Goa and come into that landing position, my God, your heart breaks. you see mountains that are decimated, done.
You're right. Very painful. Sandeep Narang, last words from you.
Sir, you talked about water and IGBC and other connections. So there are three parts to a built environment and engineers involved. We are talking to lots of engineers with our DLS and engineering college or architectural students. So there are three parts to the engineering and water. One is design engineering. One is construction engineering, or the way we construct that built environment, real estate or whatever. The third is performance engineering. The sad part, what I see with all the even green building rating systems or the engineering part, is all three are in silos. Take the case of water. We design building for 130, the code says it's 135 LPCD. For green building rating system, a building attaining gold status or platinum status, it's 40% efficient. Say it should perform at 80 to 90 LPCD.
Right.
How many buildings are getting audited during their performance period or during their commission period, and showcasing that whatever it was designed, the way it was designed, the way it was built is performing 100% to the expectations of design and construction.
Right.
So the engineers should be going that cycle of engineering, I call it cycle of engineering.
Yeah.
Somehow the engineers, there are three engineers and they work in silos. I wish the day comes when all the engineers take this as Guru Mantra. Thank you.
Right. Yeah. Dr. Tanmay is listening to you. Professor Ashish is also there. I wish Sandeep Shikre was here today. He has another meeting at the same point of time, so he had to decline. I wish Jain Oberoi was here, because he has also written this morning and, regretting his absence or whatever from this meeting. We have, of course, anyway, lots of very lovely people, thinkers, discerning Indians, concerned Indians, people who want to bring change, people who want to see what they can do. We are all lost. All of us are lost. Sreedhar, thank you so much for being here with us. Grateful to you for having come in.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Namaskar to all of you. We shall close now. Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Yatin, for having organized this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Ashish and Tanmay and others.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye to you all.